You know, whether you're just tapping your phone to buy a coffee or, hey, maybe you're managing your entire life savings with just a swipe of your thumb, FinTech has completely and kind of quietly changed our financial lives. So today we're going to look past the apps themselves and dig into the truly mind-blowing numbers. We're talking the billions in funding and the millions of users that have built this whole new world of money.
Okay, let's just kick things off with one single massive number. Ready for this? 30,000. That's right. Around 30,000 fintech startups are operating across the globe right now. It's just a sign of a total explosion in financial innovation. And we're about to break down exactly how in the world we got here.
All right, first up, let's track that incredible growth. I mean, this is really the story of how an entire industry went from this tiny, niche corner of the tech world to a mainstream force that is reshaping entire economies. And it all happened in just a few short years.
The speed of this change is just, well, it's staggering. Think about this. Back in 2018, there were just over 12,000 fintech startups in the world. Now, fast forward only 6 years to 2024, and that number has absolutely skyrocketed to nearly 30,000. It has more than doubled. I mean, that's just an incredibly short amount of time for that kind of growth.
And listen, it's not just about the number of companies. That growth is perfectly mirrored by an equally explosive growth in revenue. In 2017, the whole industry brought in about $86 billion. Okay, respectable. But by 2024, that figure has soared past $200 billion. So just like the number of companies, the industry's revenue has more than doubled, basically turning it into a global financial powerhouse. So, what fueled this crazy explosion? Well, it was a massive, unprecedented wave of investment. Let's dig in and see exactly where all that money came from to build this new financial world.
Wow, I mean, this timeline really tells a dramatic story, doesn't it? If you go back to 2012, fintech investment was, well, it was a pretty modest $4 billion. And then it just exploded. It hit this absolutely jaw-dropping peak in 2021, with nearly $230 billion pouring into the sector in a single year. Now, sure, we've seen things kind of cool off and normalize since then, but today's investment levels, they're still astronomically higher than where they were just a decade ago.
So what kind of money are we talking about here? If we break down that insane peak year of 2021, you can see the biggest driver by far was venture capital. You know, that's the high-risk, high-reward cash from investors who are basically betting big on finding the next big thing. And wow, did they bet big. They poured over $121 billion into the future of finance.
And when you look at a map, there's been one undisputed heavyweight champion in all this, the United States. In 2022, the U.S. attracted more than a third, 36% of all fintech investment deals on the planet. That pretty much cemented its spot as the central hub for both innovation and funding in this whole industry. Okay, so all this money and all these companies, it's fascinating stuff. But it brings up a really important question. Who's actually using all these new financial services? Let's connect all this big picture data to the actual people on the ground.
Get this, 64%. That's the average percentage of consumers worldwide who are now actively using fintech services. So let's be clear, this isn't some niche product for tech nerds anymore. It's officially a mainstream tool for the majority of people on Earth.
But where adoption is highest, well, this might actually surprise you. The top of the list isn't the US or Europe. Nope, it's China and India, both with a truly staggering 87% adoption rate. That's almost 9 out of every 10 people. And it really shows how fintech has allowed these developing economies to just leapfrog over the old traditional banking systems entirely. So why? Why are so many people making the switch? Well, sure, lower fees are part of it. But the number one reason, and 2/3 of consumers say this, is just better features and functionality. What does that mean? We're talking about stuff like 24/7 service, apps that are actually easy to use, and powerful tools that the old-school banks just couldn't or wouldn't offer. And for most of us, the way fintech first wiggled into our lives was through really simple, everyday things. Think about it. 3 out of every 4 customers around the world use a fintech service for payments and sending money. That's been the most common doorway into this whole new world.
Now, all of this widespread adoption has, of course, created some absolutely massive new companies. So, let's take a look at the titans, the new giants of finance that now dominate this landscape.
When you look at the biggest players in the game, it's a really fascinating mix. Right at the top, you've got Tencent, a massive Chinese tech conglomerate with a market cap of over $750 billion. Then, right behind them, you see some familiar names, Visa and MasterCard. They're proof that even the old guard can evolve and stay on top in this new era.
And then you have the startups that have become absolute giants themselves. The perfect example is Stripe, right here in the US. It's valued at over $100 billion, and it's basically become the invisible backbone that powers payments for millions and millions of websites and online businesses.
Okay, so we've seen the explosion, we've seen the money, and we've seen the major players. But where's all this heading? For our final section, let's peek over the horizon and see what the next financial frontier has in store for your wallet and mine.
You know, the first thing to understand about the future is that in a lot of ways, it's already here. Right now, the vast majority of all financial transactions, we're talking a full 2/3 of them, happen online. This digital shift isn't some trend we're waiting for. It's already the established norm.
And looking ahead, there are two key technologies that are pretty much set to drive the next big wave of innovation. First, there's artificial intelligence, or AI. It's going to power everything from smarter fraud detection to personalized, automated investing. And it's projected to become a $41 billion market all by itself. And then you've got blockchain. A huge number of financial firms believe this tech will be totally transformative for everything from international payments to the very idea of digital ownership.
And all of that brings us to our final big question. We've just seen how FinTech went from this tiny niche to a dominant global force in less than a decade. So as it cements its place as the new normal for our economy, you have to wonder, what does this tech-driven future really hold for our money, our privacy, and maybe even our financial freedom?